As the Sinn Féin party faithful met in Dublin this weekend for their Ardèche, 100,000 workers took to the streets in protest over the government's handling of the economy. The issue dominating proceedings in the RDS, where successive Sinn Féin speakers told delegates that their economic analysis has been proved right. But the polls suggest the voters aren't listening. Instead, they're turning to Labour. So why is Sinn Féin still struggling in the south? Kevin Sharkey spent the week in Dublin trying to find out.
From Dublin, Mary Lou MacDonald.
Much hope rests upon the shoulders of Mary Lou MacDonald in the time ahead. Her elevation to the post of party vice president is part of a strategy to give a more southern flavour to the Sinn Féin leadership.
There are lots of challenges ahead, comrades. But in hard times we are especially called
No doubt the comrades will have been pleased with at least one aspect of the recent poll, a 1% increase in popularity. But it was a much better poll for the comrades of the Labour Party, up 10% on the previous 3 months. 6 years ago, before decommissioning, before the IRA was stood down, and before Sinn Féin and the DUP struck a deal at Stormont, Sinn Féin stood at 9% in the polls. 6 years on, with all that banked, other parties in the Republic have shifted, Fianna Fáil down, Fine Gael and Labour up. But Sinn Féin? No change, despite an economy in recession and a government under siege.
The time is up for Thatcher's children. The time is now for the world.
This is one of the many street protests in Dublin these days. Sinn Féin has a presence here, but are the people who come here turning to Sinn Féin?
There's no evidence on the basis of the opinion polls of that happening. Support has leached away from Fianna Fáil quite significantly, and yet there's no evidence in any of the polls that it's going towards Sinn Féin. They do have a glorious opportunity. They're not taking advantage of it at the moment. We are looking, it would appear, at seismic changes in the Irish political landscape. Now, those waters could ebb back in time and we could be back to Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael, Labour with no opportunity for anybody else quite easily. But there is an opportunity there for them at the moment. But so far, they are not the party who is capturing the public imagination on that, and they don't appear to be on the cusp of doing so either.
The Sinn Féin leadership is trying hard to get more people to follow. But some academics who study the history and shifts of Irish politics see a big problem. Perception-wise, as far as the electorate in the south is concerned, what's the big problem? What's the Achilles heel, as they see it now, with Sinn Féin?
I think people, apart from the historical baggage, and that doesn't affect the younger voter very much, I still think they're seen as a party that came from somewhere else, that has a leadership from somewhere else, and that very much has the politics of somewhere else.
North County Dublin is one of the many areas around the country where Sinn Féin manages to get local councillors elected. Most pundits agree this is one of Sinn Féin's great political strengths. But the big challenge for party workers is to get voters to elect many more Sinn Féin candidates at national level.
Very good. I think one of the difficulties we have is inserting ourselves into the conversation that's taking place on the airwaves, because typically it would be Fine Gael and Labour. We've always been very strong on the ground.
But why are you finding difficulty in doing that at this particular time?
I think a lot of it's the nature of the size of our members, in terms of in the Dáil itself. But also there will be an inbuilt bias towards the larger opposition parties.
But you can't really, I suppose, blame an inbuilt bias all the time. You should really be cracking it now yourselves.
Absolutely, yeah.
As a party in its own right.
Yes.
And why aren't you doing that?
Well, I don't think we're not doing it. I'm saying that with a political party, you'll always look for more publicity, be a bigger party, get more higher poll numbers, if you like. I think for us, though, what we do is we're very good at ground operation, and what we need to do is insert ourselves much more within the wider conversation in Ireland.
These budding artists have more leisurely and soothing pursuits at a community resource centre. But when it's time for politics, even in tough economic times, some of these are among the voters who don't see the answers coming from Sinn Féin.
But I don't think they're very vocal. I don't think they seem to have a clear policy.
Sinn Féin don't get too many transfer votes from the other parties. So that's something that they need to mend a little bit. Maybe their relationship with the other political parties ought to be more acceptable to a wider voter.
I think Sinn Féin has done a lot up the north, but down here they haven't done any groundwork yet. But I wouldn't actually vote for them ever.
Sinn Féin supporters from both sides of the border packed into the RDS here yesterday, and earlier in the week it was also packed with students looking for new opportunities and jobs in these harsh economic times. Now, there's no doubt Sinn Féin has a support base among some students, but for many others, the party just doesn't register.
Hello. Are you interested in politics at all?
They don't really have that much of a presence. Like, they have a couple of seats in the Dáil, but it's nothing significant.
I try and not think of bad things, but there's such connotations with Sinn Féin as being kind of, an aggressive political party and stuff, but they're not as bad as they used to be.
I wouldn't know too much about Sinn Féin myself. I wouldn't follow that at all.
To be honest, I'm not too sure. I'd be more familiar with the likes of Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael, so
I don't really not feel their presence, but I wouldn't recognise them around the place now more so than, say, 5-6 years ago.
So much to be won and lost for all political parties in the Republic these days, but it seems the recent polls have a harsh political message for Sinn Féin.
I think there are big issues about who's going to run the economy, who's going to get us out of the hole we're in, and people are not sufficiently frightened of the sort of mainstream opposition to want to fly off into the arms of Sinn Féin.